Hi, this is Wayne Lytle. Welcome to the director's commentary of Animusic 2. We got lots of feedback from our first DVD, which we really appreciate, and we got some comments about the commentary. And they ranged all the way from it was very informative, to it was amusing, to it sounded like Wayne was just a friend of mine sitting in my living room explaining Animusic to me. Then there was a comment I read in, I think it was in a review, that said the commentary was informative, but it sounded like he was reading. I went back and listened to it, and you know, it does sound like I'm reading. Probably because I was concentrating and focusing and trying to be very precise and articulate at the beginning and describing what Animusic was. I was probably in the same mode that I'm in when I'm giving a talk at a conference or something, and so it really didn't sound like I was reading, I have to admit. But anyway, I just wanted to get that cleared up front before I even really get going on the director's commentary. That do you have page 2? Yes, okay. That I am not reading this director's commentary. Well, good thing we got that all cleared up. I just remembered another a comment we got on the commentary from a kid. Actually, this comment came in directly through their mom, and the comment was, "Mommy, please make the man stop talking." And then again, there's this other kid that only watches Animusic with the director's commentary, never the music tracks. So I guess there's something here for everyone. Well, at least we hope. We tried. Anyway, what is Animusic? Animusic is music-driven computer animation. The visuals are all done with 3D computer graphics using a similar production process to that used by the large production studios like Pixar, although on a much smaller scale here at Animusic. And the music is all digitally created using synthesizers, in this case, mostly even software synthesizers running right on a music workstation, and combined together and synchronized automatically using proprietary software that we've been developing for well over a decade, called Animusic Studio, and at its core it has an engine called MIDI Motion, which is what takes the music in the form of MIDI data and analyzes it using a collection of algorithms, combines those results all together, and routes the results to the instruments and or the players playing the instruments to automatically animate them. So there's very, very little traditional hand animation, even traditional computer hand animation done with keyframing in Animusic. It's mainly automatically calculated by the computer using our software. We do some manual animation where we drive certain parameters, for example, the position of these guys as they sort of scoot around on the stage, or their elevators as they go up and down, and other sort of secondary animation. The lighting is often done manually, although sometimes, as in the case of the sort of light speakers here, that was driven by MIDI. Also gyrodrums, the lighting there is driven by MIDI too. Well, here we are in Pogo Sticks, and this is the return of one of our instruments from Animusic 1. It was actually, I think, also the second animation, stick figures, and it was, matter of fact, the stick was on the cover of the first one, and a lot of people really loved that instrument, and it's probably one of the simplest of all the instruments, but I think the fact that it has arms and plays with some enthusiasm really somehow people relate to it a little bit more. It's sort of a little bit character-oriented, which is not by any means our specialty. I mean, we're not character animators, and you know, as much as we're huge fans of Pixar and the incredible work they do, We see what we do as being very different, and we sort of steer away from the characters with, you know, ears and eyes and everything. Although, as you can see from the first two animations on Animusic 2, we're moving a little bit in the direction of being somewhat character-like in quality. They still don't, of course, have mouths and talk and sing and stuff like that, and I don't expect they ever will, but there is some amount of human-like qualities to them that I think people can relate to, and makes it a little more fun. They have little personalities and attitudes, and so yeah, that is definitely a lot of fun. So anyway, one of the really cool aspects of the production process this go around for Animusic 2 was that we were able to integrate in a few other people into parts of the process. And for example, here we had Eric Chauvin do the sky for us. Eric is a very, very accomplished background artist. He does matte paintings for all kinds of movie and TV stuff. And he just contacted us one day and said, hey, you need any help doing some backgrounds? And in fact, we did need a couple of backgrounds done. And so it was perfect timing. And he actually went out and shot pictures of a real sky out where he lives, and using some special camera rigging, and then took, I think, something like 8 different images of the sky and sewed them all together in Photoshop to make a panorama of the sky that you see here. And then he colorized it and applied various techniques to make it seem a little less real, a little bit more integrated into sort of computer graphics land where these guys live, and match the colors to our environment to make it seem like it was all being lit in the same way. And I really like the feel of it, how it came out. I think it's really cool. Well, here we are in the acoustic number of the DVD. We try to make sure we have at least one that's fairly mellow, at least mellow most of the time. And acoustic, no electronic parts, no lasers and flashing lights and all that stuff that I tend to gravitate towards a little bit. And this is more serene and peaceful and less science fiction, but still a little bit out there. And this was an interesting one in many ways. Often our pieces start, and I have a very clear idea of the instrumentation. I have a sense of the music, and other times less so. And this is one of those cases where I actually didn't know musically where it was going. And, you know, Dave was asking me, okay, well, what are these different instruments going to do, or different components of the instrument? What are their ranges, and how will they play? And I just basically kept saying, I'm not really sure yet. Just make it weird, make it interesting and different, all kinds of strange angles. And I directed this one from a much more abstract and less specific way, and he put a lot of his own design into it, and actually what we did is ended up letting that be sort of a constraint for the music, rather than designing the instrument to play a certain piece of music. It ended up being, at the end, well, here's this instrument. Now I got to figure out how to write some music for it. And literally it was pretty much completed, totally done, before I even began to write music. And I had no idea what to do with this thing. It was the last piece of music that I wrote. It was the last animation that we produced for Animusic 2. And I was a little concerned that I wasn't going to be able to come up with anything at all. But, well, here it is. I actually spent a lot of time going back and forth trying to figure out, what kind of music this thing would play. Because on one hand, I wanted it to be sort of the mellow piece, and on the other hand, it's so unusual and strange that it wouldn't make sense to have it play something that's very, just very normal sounding, sort of like the Aquaharp piece in Animusic 1, just very straightforward, very basic sort of chord progression and arpeggios. This thing is kind of a little bit wacky, so I decided it had to have some parts, for example, this part that's just a little bit out there, a little bit strange, and yet also have some parts that were very kind of straightforward, mellow arpeggios, melodies, and stuff like that. So I tried to sort of blend both together, and then I was worried about, do these different styles of music even go together, and is this the music that this instrument should really be playing? And I can just get myself to a point where I overanalyze and worry about it so much that I get myself all bound up and I can't go anywhere. So eventually I sort of had to just relax and go, okay, this seems to be working itself out. And so anyway, that's the story behind that one. The skies outside are actually 4 different skies, 4 different moons. And our original thought was to have a different sky out each window, even being a different time of day, to make it really surreal. But in the end, we ended up having it be basically evening out all 4 windows. Well, here we are in Cathedral Pictures, and this is the first animation that we've done to a pre-existing piece of music. Many people have asked, could you animate classical music? And actually, it turned out that HP approached us to do an animation to roll out a new line of digital projectors. So it needed to be a high definition animation, and they wanted it to be to a known piece of classical music. And I worked with a wonderful person there named David A. Williams, and we went back and forth on various ideas and ended up with excerpts from pictures at an exhibition by Mussorgsky. And it's very recognizable. A lot of people are familiar with the music. Not everybody knows where it came from or what the history behind it was, but HP wanted something that was recognizable, and I'd loved the music, and so that worked out nicely. What not everybody realizes is this music was originally written by Mussorgsky for solo piano, and it's been since arranged also for orchestra, and of course there's a well-known version done by Emerson, Lake and Palmer, one of my favorite bands of all time. And it was with a little bit of fear and trepidation that I approached doing our version of it, because so many people know and love this music, and I didn't want to mess it up too much, realizing that that was a distinct possibility. And also, being as familiar as I was from years ago with ELP's version, I was hoping that that wouldn't sort of be creeping in the back of my head and influence too much the approach that I took to the music here. And so I actually didn't listen to that version at all during the whole production. I hadn't heard it in years, and I still was a little worried that it was going to be too similar in some respects. And when I was done, I went back and I listened to the ELP version, and I was relieved that I didn't end up lifting stuff directly out of there, any of the drum riffs or anything like that. But I'm sure it has some similarities, just the fact that it is integrating in some rock instruments with known classical stuff. So anyway, this was definitely, I'd have to say, the most complex environment that we had put together. It was actually the first production that we worked on for Animusic 2. Dave and I took an extended break after Animusic 1 out of sheer exhaustion, but this is where we started back in again and doing this thing for HP, and then having arranged for us to be able to use it on our DVD when that finally came out. And so this is where we got started, and it was very complex compared to some of the stuff we'd done before. And it also, because it was done for HD, high definition, it's very detailed, a lot of small moving parts and everything, and of course it looks great on their projector equipment, but it was very, very challenging to get it to look half decent on regular standard resolution TV like you're seeing it here. Many challenges both with the rendering and also with the encoding. And the guy who did the encoding, a top production facility in LA who does DVD encoding for all kinds of major studios, said, you should sell this stuff to as example material to break encoders, because it's impossible to encode this stuff. And this was the most challenging piece in the whole thing. Getting this to look good was next to impossible. But I guess that's what we get for taking something that was done for high definition TV and doing a standard definition version. Well, I mentioned earlier that this was the first animation that Dave and I launched into for Animusic 2. We don't produce them in the same order that they appear on the DVD. We produce them in the order based on kind of what we're inspired to do at the moment. Sometimes we work on 2 or even 3 at the same time in parallel. And then at the end, they're arranged according to the order that seems to flow the best, and various different other reasons. We may even make a change in the 11th hour as far as the playlist to get it to flow in a way that kind of makes sense. Now, of course, you can always go to the index menu on the DVD, and from there it'll take you to, there's one sub-menu for each of these 8 animations, and from there you can play either the full screen version or the widescreen version of that particular animation, as well as watch slides of some of the early art development and whatever the particular bonus feature is for that animation. Pipe Dream 2. One of the questions that we're asked pretty frequently is if we can just basically take one of these animations and throw some new music at it in the form of a new MIDI file, and if a new animation will automatically be created, which is a very good question. The answer is yes and no. Mostly yes, in the sense that, as I mentioned earlier, almost all of the animation is calculated automatically in software from the music, so that if you pass new music in, it'll animate itself, basically. However, there's still some things that need to be done manually, and in this case, camera moves are probably the main example. Because the music's different, the animation is different, and the instruments are kind of playing different things at different times, the focus point is completely different when you give it a new piece of music. So the cameras are going to be the main thing that are going to be redone. Lighting, maybe to some extent. In this case, Dave reworked the lighting just because we felt like doing it. We wanted to make it a little bit more colorful, a little bit different than last time. So it's the same exact environment as Pipe Dream, the first one. But we actually, what we did was we aged it a little bit. You can see here on the walls there, it looks like, some dirt and grime, a little bit of oil's been dripping out from these pumps from years of use, and there's a little bit more wear and tear on the, like the marimba notes here, a few more dents in the wall and the floor. So it has a little bit more of a worn look, as well as a little bit more colorful lighting. Like they came in and installed some new lighting rigs with some a little bit of more colored gels than the first time. But basically, it's all mainly the same models. There's been a little bit of enhancement of certain parts that you can see, like the part that just went up there. It's a little bit more detailed now because it spends a little more time on screen, so Dave kind of enhanced it a little bit. It's funny, I sort of have mixed feelings about doing a new version of an animation that we've done before, but just with new music. The purist in me feels a little bit like it's cheating or something, that every single animation has to have completely brand new instruments designed from the ground up, all new music, all new everything. And some people have pointed out that that's not necessarily the case. And a matter of fact, people appreciate seeing something that's familiar and that they enjoyed the first time, and getting to see it either reperform or see it from a new angle. And so maybe that's true, and that's actually one of numerous questions I have. I'd love to hear from people. What's your opinion on how much should be completely new? How much should just, obviously it takes a lot more time to make things that are brand new, and it's a lot more fun as well, but it takes longer, it's more expensive, and people like seeing stuff they've seen before. So I'd love to get your opinion on that, as well as the bonus material. How important is that to our audience out there? Speaking of bonus material, this piece has some of my favorite bonus material on it. If you go from the index menu to go to the sub menu for fiber bundles, you'll find 4 different, what we call mixes. It's both a music mix as well as a video mix or video blend, where we've isolated certain instrument groups, and you hear only those instruments, and you mainly see only those instruments. A little bit of the rest of the environment you can see very faded out, just to sort of give you the orientation or the context. It's one single camera throughout the whole thing, centered front on, looking directly at this whole environment here, and isolates the different parts of the music and the different instruments. And I enjoy just watching it by itself. I don't know if I'm unique in that, but I actually enjoy sometimes watching the bonus material where it's very sort of stripped down and pure, and you're looking at just one instrument. I enjoy that as much or more than the animations themselves sometimes. But again, I don't know how much people even watch the bonus material. We don't hear as much feedback nearly about the bonus material as the main animations. And I'd love to hear people's feedback as far as, how important is the bonus material to you, and what are the ones that you enjoy the most? I know set construction seems to be pretty popular, especially with kids. And a couple of the pieces on this DVD have set construction shorts. I guess the pictures and heavy light have some set construction behind the scenes stuff, but we actually didn't do set construction for every single piece this time as we did with Animusic 1. Instead, we decided to have different bonus material for different of the animations. So for example, the first one, Starship, we have, it's a 3-camera multiple angle bonus material. So you actually go through the whole animation, and you can switch using your angle button between 3 different cameras. One focuses on the bass guy, one focuses on the red guy, and the third one focuses on the percussion. And actually, nobody's really sure that that's a guy. Some people refer to the red guy in Starship as she, and maybe it is. I'm not even entirely sure. But anyway, the bonus material, there's all kinds of different stuff for different pieces, so make sure you go to the index menu and go down a level and see what all is there. We spent a bunch of time doing it, maybe too much time, but anyway, maybe we spent too much time on this whole thing, and I do apologize for how long this has taken. I know a lot of people have been waiting and asking when is it going to be ready, and it took a lot longer than we originally had planned for numerous reasons, one of which is the fact that at a certain point we decided to do both full screen and widescreen versions of all the animations. Originally, we had planned on doing only widescreen, and we began all the animations with just a widescreen version. But when you play back widescreen material, especially field rendered as ours is, on a regular standard def 4:3 aspect ratio TV, and your DVD player is letterboxing it, so you get the black at the top and the bottom, it actually doesn't give as pure a picture. Slightly fuzzy, slightly blurred, not as focused looking as if you play back a full screen version. So we decided, we thought about this for quite a while, and we said, you know, let's go ahead and make a full screen and a widescreen version. The cameras are slightly different. We're going to optimize the camera views for each format on a shot-by-shot basis, and we re-rendered everything in both formats. We realized that's a little unusual and not the most efficient way to produce something, but hopefully in the end it gave the best results. This is probably my favorite animation on Animusic 2, at least one of a couple, both visually and musically. I think Dave did a great job on the model. It's very organic and alien looking, and yet still friendly and happy. And true confessions time, I've played all three Ratchet and Clank video games more than anyone probably should, and I love the music in those games, and it's probably had a little bit of influence over this piece. Gyro drums. This was, I would say, the biggest troublemaker for us of this whole project. There's always one animation that just seems to be a little bit more challenging and present a few more technical problems, and this was the one for Animusic 2. And one of the things for me was how many different drums and percussion instruments there were, and keeping track of them all. I actually had to spread them across 2 different MIDI keyboards because there was so many of them, and then I could never remember which drum was where on which key and what was the MIDI number and which channel was it routed to and which instrument object on the screen corresponded to which sound, and it was like the game of concentration. I can't ever remember what card is where, and here's a drum version of the game of concentration. Extremely frustrating. I ended up writing a bunch of software that would help me to keep track of things better and to make much more clear the correspondence between the, basically which drum was where. Plus the fact that I love writing software, so any excuse I have to write more software, I found one here and I had a good time. This started out, as many things do, sort of with a more simple initial vision, and it grew much in the same way that this contraption here is growing over time with more and more components being added to it. That's sort of how it went with the animation. We started with a more simple kind of vision, and then kind of kept adding to it. So we could add this on, and we could have more of this, and then this could attach here, and it just kept growing and growing. Kind of like it does here, not in exactly the same order, but it ultimately got a little out of hand. But it was a lot of fun to see it come together. Well, I have someone special with me here doing the director's commentary. It's my son Andrew, who's 9. He's 9 right now, at least when we're recording it. If you're watching this years from now, he'll be older. But anyway, why don't you say hi?
Hi.
And do you want to tell us anything about this animation?
Well, this part is really colorful, and I think it took Dad a very long time to make it. It's my favorite animation because right now it's coming to the electric drum part.
Oh, this is your favorite part here, is it?
Yeah.
What do you like about this part?
I just like the electric drums, the sound they make and all.
Well, thanks for your comments, Andrew. Speaking of the electric drums, and the surround sound soundtrack on this DVD, I panned them in a very extreme way. They sort of bounce all over the room, which is kind of fun. In general, though, I've kept the surround sound mix a little bit more tame. It's actually an interesting challenge to figure out the instrument placement in the 5-1 mix, because on one hand, you've got these visual cues right in front of you of the actual positions visually, but if you constrain yourself to mixing according to those positions, everything would come out essentially of the center speaker and maybe a little left and right. But if you do too much of an extreme surround mix, it's almost disorienting and conflicting with what you see on the screen. Well, here we are in heavy light, the last piece of the DVD. And this is one of my favorites. Usually if I'm watching this one, I think it's my favorite. And then if I look at fiber bundles, I think that one's my favorite. It's whichever of those two I happen to be watching. And I think personally, I tend to gravitate towards the electronic sounds, light-based animation. Not that I dislike in any way the acoustic stuff or physically based things like Pipe Dream's a lot of fun. I just think, it's sort of my taste a little bit. But it's interesting. It seems that there's sort of two very broad categories of our audience as far as their preference, and it's those two things. There's the people, the younger crowd, for example, Andrew, really likes things that have lots of lights and electronic stuff, robots and lasers and stuff like that. And then there's sort of the other group of people that really prefers more of the acoustic instruments, or at least things that are more physically based. They bounce around like under the influence of gravity or whatever. And so we actually really enjoy doing both and hope to continue doing both, although it's certainly been discussed that we may sort of fork at some point into maybe doing a couple of different lines of DVDs, one being a little bit more of the electronic, modern, techno music, more rock, more, lasers and robots and stuff like that, and have a different line that's perhaps more acoustic, more physically based, maybe more some more classical stuff, and of course it can split to an arbitrary number of different categories like that. But for now, I think we enjoy sort of the eclectic, sort of collection of all kinds of different things all mixed in there together, and there's something there for everyone, I guess. Or since I'm kind of a pessimist, I like to say there's something there for everybody to dislike, but hopefully there's something there for everybody to like too. Anyway, this animation is kind of cool in that this is the one that we actually had 4 different people involved in. The background was again done by Eric Chauvin, which is beautiful. I just love the mood that it creates and how it blends in with the models. And the modeling was a shared effort. Dave did, as always, the sort of intricate details of all the instrument components and all that stuff. But the outer structure was modeled by Steve DeFace, which came out gorgeous, I think. And you know, Steve's specialty in this project, he was involved in 2 or 3 different animations, was kind of the more symmetrical stuff. And see if you can guess which other animation he did the background modeling for. If you think back on the different ones, which is the one that's also very symmetrical, very organized, sort of, I think, reflects his personality to some extent. Steve's someone I've known for over 20 years. Actually was a friend of mine back in high school days, so it was really cool to be able to collaborate with him on this project too. So we had, you know, Dave and I, as well as Steve and Eric. And also, early on in this project, we were working a little bit with Inee Oken, who is a fantastic artist. I love her work, and I just called her up one day and said, hey, you know, do you want to work on Animusic 2 at all? And she thought that was really cool, and we did some sort of initial brainstorming stuff, and she did some consulting and advising and whatever. And that was really cool. You can see some of her concept art for a couple of our animations in the slideshows, in the bonus material. Another plug for the bonus material, lest you've forgotten it's there. Just a little paranoid that nobody ever looks at it. Maybe we should just not put it there. I wonder if anyone would know. Let me tell you a little bit about Animusic as a company. I mean, it's funny because there's sort of a couple of misconceptions out there. One is the sort of the myth that Animusic is Wayne Lytle, and you know, it's something that I do on my spare time on the weekends on a laptop, and it's real easy and quick, and I do it for fun in my spare time. And then there's the sort of the other extreme, where we're in this big office building with multiple floors and different departments. There's the shipping department and accounting and IT and everything, and it's definitely neither of those two extremes. It's actually, you know, the core production team is Dave and I, and we're absolutely full-time and then some as far as you know, working on this stuff. We don't have day jobs, and this is our day job. And thanks to you and the people who have bought this, this is something that we can do full-time and dedicate all of our brains to. I cannot express enough how much we appreciate that, because there's nothing, at least speaking for me, there's nothing I'd rather do than make these things. So we really appreciate everybody who's bought our stuff and all the great feedback we've been getting. Please continue to send us feedback. We all look at it. It's distributed around to the whole production team and a number of other people, and we love to hear from you. And so please continue giving us your feedback. We really appreciate the encouragement that we've gotten from everybody over the years, and thanks again very much. Wayne Lytle signing off. Enjoy.